the old man that no one invited to the wedding. It happened many years ago, in a forgotten ranch in Hermosillo, Sonora, where Don Ramiro and Dona Esther lived, a marriage that had everything: cows, horses, fertile lands, and a lot of money. They called themselves good Christians. They prayed before every meal and assured that they helped the poor. But of course, everything had its limit, because one thing was to help the needy and another very different, to mix with them at their parties. That is why, when the day of his son's wedding arrived, Julian, the ranch was filled with luxury, but the poor, those were left out looking from afar. Imagine this. A huge altar full of flowers brought from the city, mariachis playing nonstop, tables full of roast meat, goat, freshly made tortillas, beans, and fresh cheese. 12 cows were sacrificed just for the banquet. 12 cows, as if they were feeding an army. People came from afar, from other ranches, merchants from Hermosillo. Even an important politician appeared, all with their best clothes, gold watches, and well-woven boots. But something was wrong. The poor of the town were not invited. Those who lived on the other side of the river, those who barely had anything to eat, looked at the party from afar. They saw how the food was served in excess, how the dishes were left in half, and how the wine ran out of measure. And then, when the party was at its highest point, an old man arrived who no one knew. The sun was already setting when it dawned. A man entered the ranch without asking permission, walking slowly but surely, as if he knew the place well. An old man, thin, hunched over, with an old scarf and spent on his shoulders, his white hair, his skin burned by the sun, and some bony hands that seemed to have worked all his life. No one knew him. No one had invited him. Without a doubt, he sat in the most important chair of the wedding, the one that was decorated with elegant fabrics reserved only for God. He grabbed a piece of bread, broke it calmly, and took it to his mouth. The music stopped suddenly. The guests stopped talking. Even the mariachi stayed with the trumpet in the middle of blowing. The grooms, Julian and his wife, looked at him without understanding. "Who are you?" the groom asked with a frown. The old man smiled and with a paused voice said, "Excuse the delay. I am glad that you have invited me. Congratulations on your marriage, but where is your family? I don't see them here." The groom and the bride were frozen. What was that old man talking about? The old man extended his hand and touched their forehead gently. Immediately, the drunkenness they brought disappeared completely. They felt lucid, as if they had woken up from a dream. Julian swallowed saliva. "He must be an old man known to my father," he whispered to his wife. But he was not. Someone was running with Don Ramiro and Dona Esther, who were busy drinking tequila and laughing with their guests. "Don Ramiro, there's an old man at the wedding. He sat down in the main chair and says that he was invited." "Old man? What old man?" "No one knows him, boss. He is not well dressed to be one of ours." Don Ramiro's face turned red with fury. "And what the hell is he doing here then? From a jailin'?" He got up and went straight to the old man. When he arrived, he saw him sitting as if nothing, with crossed legs and eating bread with the greatest tranquility in the world. "Old liar! No one invited you. No one knows you," Don Ramiro shouted. The guests began to laugh. Some approached to see him better, curiously, and mocked him in the look. The old man remained silent. He only looked at him with calm expression, as if he knew something that the others did not. But Don Ramiro did not want to hear reasons. He pulled him by the arm with force and pulled him out of the chair. "Take him away from here." The ranch employees grabbed him among several and pushed him to the exit. The old man fell to the floor. They felt a strange cold in the room. Don Ramiro wanted to get up, but his legs did not respond. "Esther, I can't move." "MS." Esther woke up scared. She tried to get up, but her mouth was crooked and her hands did not respond. "Ramiro, something is wrong with me. Something is wrong with me." At that moment, a strong wind passed the house, and all the candles went out at the same time. The ruin had just entered the ranch, and the worst was yet to come. At dawn, the employees noticed that something was wrong. Don Ramiro, who always got up early, had not left his room. They knocked on the door. "Boss, all right?" Silence. Don Ramiro. When they finally managed to enter, they found the most terrifying image they had ever seen. The two bosses lying in bed, motionless, with their eyes open and full of anguish. The voice ran fast. The boss and his wife were sick, and no one knew why. They had doctors brought in, they had healers brought in, they had shamans brought in. None could do anything. "It is not a disease," murmured an old healer, trembling. "So what is it?" Julian shouted, "The newly married son." The healer looked down. "Something else, something that is beyond us." But the disease of the bosses was just the beginning. In the second week, the employees began to notice something even more strange. The cattle began to die mysteriously. First there were 3 cows, then 10. By the time the sheep did not want to leave the corral. The horses do not eat, they are restless. The calves die at night and dawn stiff, without any reason. It was as if everything that used to bloom in the golden mosque was disappearing. Desperation was growing. The food in the pantry began to rot from one day to the next. The wheat, which had never lacked, was filled with worms. And the worst, the water began to dry up. The well, which had given life to the ranch for generations, dried up completely in one night. The employees began to flee. "This is a devil's thing, boss," said one before leaving. The few who remained did so out of pity, because although Don Ramiro and Dona Esther had been hard, now they were no more than 2 weak and scared figures in a bed, and fear was eating their souls. Julian's wife, who had just been the bride at the big wedding, left. "I'm not going to stay here to starve Julian." Julian was left alone with his sick parents, seeing how everything they had ever had crumbled like sand between his fingers. The other tenants laughed in secret. "Did you see what happened in the Golden Mosque? They say that Don Ramiro is disabled and that his wife cannot even hold a glass. I don't know what they did, but they deserved it." The ranch, which used to be the most prosperous in the region, was now nothing more than an empty shell. And then the most incredible thing happened. One day, when no one expected help, the poor neighbors arrived at Don Ramiro's house. Those same people who were never invited to the banquet. Those same people who saw how the food was wasted while their children were starving. But they did not come to make fun of each other. "Boss, what a pity what has happened to them," one said, leaving a little corn on the table. "We don't have much, but we want to help." Another left a couple of eggs. Another a handful of beans. Dona Esther, with a trembling voice, burst into tears. "We never helped them as we should. But the poor did not hold a grudge. The past is over, boss. Just apologize and move on." When they left, Don Ramiro felt for the first time a weight on his chest that had nothing to do with his illness. It was a shame. That night, Don Ramiro had a dream. He dreamed that he was walking through a completely white and bright place. Suddenly a door opened, and there, sitting with a clean and white dress, floating on the floor, was the old man of the wedding. Don Ramiro fell on his knees. "Forgive me. I did not know who you were." The old man looked at him with infinite calm. "Day and night you asked me to visit your house. You called me, you looked for me, and when I arrived you despised me." Don Ramiro felt a chill. "Was it you, sir?" The old man sighed. "The wealth you had was not yours, it was a loan, and it was to share it." Don Ramiro woke up bathed in sweat. Dona Esther also woke up moaning. He had had the same dream. And then they understood. They did not punish us. Don Ramiro whispered. He was the enemy who took advantage of our arrogance and lack of faith. At dawn, they sent the neighbors to call. When they arrived, Don Ramiro looked at them with tears in his eyes. "We said that you were like our family, but we never treated you as such." The neighbors remained silent. "Now that we have lost everything, we have understood, and we will give you our lands." The neighbors were a bit open. "Are you serious, boss?" "More serious than ever. I do not want to die without doing the right thing." A year passed. The bosses recovered their health, and the Golden Mosque prospered again, but this time for everyone. And when Don Ramiro and Dona Esther died of old age, they did not die alone. They died surrounded by the people who really loved them, because in the end they understood that wealth is fleeting, but gratitude and humility are forever.